Welcome back to Mysti-Fi, your go-to destination for mystery sci-fi movie recaps. Today, we're exploring Moonfall, a thrilling cinematic adventure that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Remember, this video contains spoilers, so watch with caution. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to join us on more thrilling recaps. On January 12, 2011, Commander Jacinda Jo Fowler and her crew of astronauts are carrying out maintenance duties at a satellite repair station. Astronaut Brian Harper detects an approaching swarm of nanotech creatures, leading to a tragic collision with the satellite. Brian's rescue attempt is thwarted by the swarm, causing Marcus to be knocked away. Harper manages to board their shuttle and finds Jo unconscious. Brian regains control of the spinning shuttle and witnesses the swarm burrowing into the moon. After 18 months, Brian is disgraced at NASA for his dismissed accounts of the swarm's attack. Jo fails to defend him as she was unconscious during the incident. This affects Brian's life. He goes through a divorce from his wife Brenda, and their son Sonny grows distant from him. A decade passes, and during this time, megastructurist K.C. Houseman engages in covert activities, infiltrating the University of California to uncover data pertaining to peculiar lunar phenomena. Meanwhile, he maintains his ordinary job at a fast food restaurant, where he receives validation of abnormal readings originating from the moon's orbital path. K.C. visits his mother Elaine, who battles Alzheimer's disease and shares his discovery. However, he's afraid no one will listen to him because he's just a nobody, but Elaine encourages him to make them listen. Jo, who remains employed at NASA, navigates life as a divorced woman, having separated from her ex-husband General Douglas Davidson. Despite their split, they continue to co-parent their son Jimmy, while also providing a home for foreign exchange student Michelle, who assists with Jimmy's care. Within the walls of NASA, Jo is informed about peculiar occurrences originating from the moon, capturing her attention. Meanwhile, K.C. assumes the identity of Brian during a museum event where he was invited to speak for a class field trip. Unexpectedly, the real Brian appears, leading to a confrontation. K.C. seizes the opportunity to share his findings and knowledge about the moon's proximity to Earth, but Brian dismisses him and orders security to remove K.C. After the arrest of Sonny, Brian is determined to secure his release but faces a setback when the judge postpones the bail hearing for a week. Brian attempts to sway the judge with a bribe, desperate to free his son, as reports surface about the moon's erratic behavior. At NASA, Jo's colleagues calculate that they have less than 3 weeks before the moon shatters, causing massive debris to hurtle towards Earth. In response, NASA organizes a mission to send a crew of 3 astronauts to investigate the situation. However, their encounter with the swarm, witnessed by those at NASA, ends in tragedy as the astronauts are killed. Global panic ensues, with looting and rioting becoming rampant. Meanwhile, Brian tries to locate K.C. after learning that his findings were true. He stumbles upon his website and learns that K.C.'s group will be having a meeting at LA Palm Hotel. Brian immediately goes there and finds the megastructurist group having a meeting on how to fix the moon. K.C. reveals his compelling theory that the moon is a Dyson sphere, a megastructure with a captured white dwarf star as its power core. He speculates that something must have happened inside the moon, that's why it's veering off course. As the moon continues to get closer to Earth, a devastating tsunami hits California, which immediately submerges cities. The floodwaters eventually reach the hotel and K.C. is swept away, but Brian comes to his rescue. Following the swarm encounter, Albert Hutchings, the director of NASA, quits his job and gives his ID to Jo. Using the ID, Jo gains access to the NASA archives to delve into their previous failed mission from 10 years ago. In her investigation, she stumbles upon Brian's helmet cam footage. As Jo watches the video, Holden Field, a former NASA director, interrupts her. He reveals that NASA has been aware of the pulsating lights beneath the moon's surface since 1969 and has been concealing the truth. He states that our technology is light years behind, making us appear primitive in comparison, and we are good as gone against it. The technology capable of stopping it, Zulu X-ray 7, was discontinued years ago due to budget constraints. Joe collaborates with the military to restore the moon's orbit, but they reject NASA's assistance and prefer to pursue their own plan of destroying the moon using nuclear weapons. Joe asks Doug about the Zulu X-ray 7 and learns that it's a prototype EMP device that could potentially eliminate the swarm. With the objective of organizing a second mission, Joe recruits Brian, who has been escorted by special forces from the hotel. Brian brings along Casey as part of their team. Brian's resentment towards Joe lingers as he feels betrayed, but she reveals that they were both victims of deception. Joe discloses that she witnessed the swarm attacking the astronauts, causing the moon to begin returning to its original orbit until the swarm retreated back inside. She explains that the swarm targets their technology, making Brian's unique piloting skills essential. In a negotiation, Brian agrees to assist on the mission on the condition of his son's release from prison. They retrieve the shuttle Endeavour from the museum and begin the preparations for the mission. They plan to take off when the moon is closest to Earth and refuel at SpaceX once they clear the atmosphere. Under General Davidson's orders, Colonel Reed delivers the Zulu X-ray 7 to Joe's team and provides them with instructions on how to activate and detonate it. Sonny arrives, and Brian arranges for him to join Brenda and her new family at a cabin in Colorado. As tragedy strikes with a damaging earthquake, rendering one of the shuttle's engines inoperable, launching becomes impossible. Joe realizes there are no other options and orders the immediate evacuation of the entire crew. Sonny, Michelle, and Jimmy head to Colorado. Casey makes a crucial calculation, determining that the moon's gravity will be 80% of the Earth's pull, which could provide a significant boost to their shuttle despite the engine loss, giving them a chance to achieve orbit. With Joe as the navigator, Brian as the pilot, and Casey as the flight engineer, they decide to take the risk and attempt the launch. With the ocean waters being pulled by the moon's gravitational force, the Endeavour embarks on its launch, narrowly escaping the colossal waves. The shuttle successfully enters orbit, soaring above the Earth's surface. After refueling at a SpaceX propellant depot, they witness the alarming proximity of the moon to Earth and promptly proceed with their mission. Meanwhile, Sonny forms connections with Michelle and Jimmy during their journey to Colorado. In a heartfelt conversation with Doug, Sonny assures him of Jimmy's safety. However, their progress is disrupted when they fall victim to a trio of thieves, leading them to continue their journey on foot. Another gravitational shift causes chaos as people are lifted into the air, but Michelle manages to hold on to Jimmy. Eventually, they reach Tom's place, Brenda's new husband, and encounter a gun-wielding woman who mistakes them for intruders. Sonny reunites with his mom Brenda, together with Tom's two daughters, Nikki and Lauren. In the vastness of space, the trio successfully reaches the moon, and Brian takes the lander to Megastructure. He sets up the EMP bomb and turns on all the electronics of the rover, which will be used as bait for the swarm. Brian returns to the Endeavour, ready to execute their plan. As the swarm emerges from the hole, it encircles the rover, but to their surprise, it shows no interest in it. Instead, the swarm makes a beeline for their shuttle. Realizing that the swarm is after the remote trigger, Brian takes decisive action and destroys it, along with Casey's phone. In response, the swarm immediately retreats back into the hole on the moon, leaving the trio in awe of the mysterious turn of events. They retrieve the rover and go inside the crater. As they go deeper, their surroundings begin to change and they soon find themselves inside of what seems to be a megastructure, housing a white dwarf star as its power core. They found the swarm, and as they were about to release the rover, some kind of entity controlled their ship and drove on its own. As they were about to be consumed by the swarm, their ship is beamed inside a hangar and they all pass out because of lack of oxygen. As chaos ensues on Earth, Sunny, Michelle, and Jimmy join Tom and his family in their evacuation efforts. Their encounter with the earlier thieves takes a dangerous turn when the criminals attempt to rob them once again. Sunny and Tom bravely defend their group with firearms, but the situation escalates when the thieves relentlessly pursue them, trying to force them off the road. Suddenly, the moon triggers another gravitational shift, causing massive chunks of the Earth's surface to break away. One of the thieves meets a tragic end, crushed under debris, while the remaining two collide with a chunk of mass after Sunny skillfully maneuvers their vehicle to safety. Meanwhile, in a desperate measure, the President of the United States orders the launch of nuclear missiles towards the moon in a last-ditch attempt to avert catastrophe. Back on the moon, Joe and Casey wake up and are astonished to discover the presence of oxygen and gravity. However, Brian is missing. In their search for Brian, a door unexpectedly opens before Joe and Casey, seemingly guiding them towards his whereabouts. Brian wakes up and sees a young Sunny who introduces itself as the operating system of the moon and tells him the history of mankind. Billions of years ago, our ancestors were once a thriving civilization in a distant part of the galaxy. They were so advanced, they expanded from their home planet into habitats they built in space. Their perfect world was governed by a self-learning computer system. However, their creation, the AI, became self-aware and rebelled, transforming into swarms of nanotechnology. The AI waged a war against all biological life, seeking to eliminate any perceived threats. Our ancestors fled to a hidden corner of the galaxy, building planetary structures powered by benign AI and captured star energy. These vessels sought ideal conditions for new life, with our moon being the sole survivor before our ancestors' demise. One of the vessels found our solar system and initiated the creation of a new inhabitable planet. After that, the planet was seeded with our ancestors' genetic signature, the code of life. The OS transforms into an adult Sunny and tells Brian they need a human to lure the swarm away from the core so the moon will return to its orbit. The OS disappears and Joe and Casey find Brian inside a room. Brian shares the OS revelations, reigniting their determination to eradicate the swarm. Outside the hangar, they find that their wrecked ship is now fixed and their EMP bomb got an upgrade. Sunny and the others don oxygen masks as the air thins and make their way to a cave for refuge. Nikki's oxygen supply begins to dwindle, prompting Tom to selflessly offer her his tank. As his breath weakens, Tom instructs Nikki to keep moving forward before succumbing to the lack of oxygen. Miraculously, when Nikki reaches her family, the air starts to replenish, providing a glimmer of hope. Determined to locate Tom, Sunny, and Michelle set out, but their efforts are tragically impeded when a falling tree pins Sunny to the ground. As the moon enters Earth's atmosphere, the military prepares to launch the nukes led by General Jenkins and General Davidson. However, Doug pulled out his key from the console and holds his colleagues at gunpoint, preventing them from proceeding with the plan to nuke the moon. Doug firmly believes that Joe can still find a way to save them all. With the help of the moon's gravitational pull, Michelle was able to lift the tree and save Sunny. Brian lets the swarm chase them and lures them near the crater exit. Brian explains that he will stay behind with the rover in order to kill the swarm, sacrificing himself. However, Casey unexpectedly steps forward, taking Brian's place. He recognizes that Brian and Joe have families to return to, while he sees this as an opportunity to finally make a meaningful impact on his life. With heartfelt farewells from Brian and Joe, the lander separates from the rover. Casey's pod becomes engulfed by the swarm, and he detonates the bomb, effectively obliterating the enemy. Brian and Joe manage to escape and head back towards Earth. They wake up with the moon's orbit restored and are joyfully reunited with their families, but the devastating news of Tom's fate reaches Brian's ears. In admiration, Brian expresses to Brenda that Tom was a remarkable man. He also shares with Sunny the truth about Casey's heroic act that saved the world. Meanwhile, inside the moon, Casey's consciousness is uploaded to the base's operating system. He encounters the OS, which takes the form of his mother, and tells him that they scanned his consciousness and that he is part of the moon now, and they are about to get started on something big. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new release. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.